Motivate, inspire, and engage your students with passion projects, the teaching unit for middle schoolers. This is a fully comprehensive step-by-step approach to introducing the passion project Genius Hour format into the middle school classroom. This unit is beautifully organized in 4 bends. Bend 1, generating students' passions. Bend 2, helping students form their driving questions and embark on high levels of research. Bend 3, taking actions into the real world. And Bend 4, metacognition, having students do a presentation about what they have learned about learning. The Passion Project is introduced with some guiding principles. It must involve research. It has to have reflection taking place, and students need to be defensive of their time. At the beginning of every session, there is a video that sets as a mentor example for all students to see the Passion Project taken into the real world. Each session also has a reflection component where students have that opportunity to do the metacognition. How have they grown as a learner? The session, in that first bend, students are learning about how they can find their passions. At least 3 sessions are devoted entirely to students generating their wonderings and finding what they're passionate about, whether it's through the creation of wonder wall, whether it's through using a variety of different strategies such as hexagonal thinking, or just examining newspapers to look at the way that certain topics can be developed. This constant reflection of how they have grown as a thinker and as a learner at the end of each of their sessions. One of the toughest things for students is to develop an effective driving question. Many different tools are given for teachers to help students go from a wonder into a driving question. How good is that driving question? Checklists are given for students to look to see whether their driving question is both focused and complex. Is it something that taps into their own interests and passions? If it is, they're more likely to be engaged. We all know that kids love to do Google research, and they look at their media, but they will learn that research is made up of not just Google searches, but also of interviews and surveys and observations. As they go forward, many of the sessions move away from being teacher-centered to being student-centered. Constantly, students are being asked to take notes and to use their notes in ways that show that they're developing as thinkers, they're developing as learners. Often, students may need to learn how to use a survey, or how to perhaps conduct an interview or send an email. By giving targeted one-to-one instruction or small group instruction on an as-needed basis, the teacher's time and the student's time is maximized. Often, students don't know how to interview. Instead of teaching it to the entire class, why not just teach it to the kids who are planning to do an interview at that time? One of the things that students will also be doing is looking at a variety of different sources. How do they know those sources are credible? There's resources available for students to test the credibility of their sources. Going through into Bend 3, the expectation is students will learn how to take action, and students are taught about direct action and indirect action. Students are taught a great deal about the different ways that they can conduct direct action, or they can also just involve themselves in indirect action. But the whole idea of the Passion Project is that the students will not just end when the unit ends, but they will take their learning into the real world and continue it, whether it be starting of movement, whether it be bringing in awareness to a topic, or whether it be working in some type of service environment. More often than that, as we move into the final bend, students then have to do a presentation, which is their metacognition. What have they learned about learning? Students are taught how to storyboard through the use of mentor text and videos. Because this relates perfectly to their writing standards, students are taught to present their information not just in one continuous narrative, but using a wide variety of different text structures. Students are taught how to pull those text structures into their story outlines. passion, but also we want students to be able to think about the life lessons that they're taking away from them. That learning maybe is like being lost in a maze. Stumbling blocks are the dead ends. Trial and error is that direction, and success comes from taking one step at a time. We all know that true learning takes place when students are allowed to follow their own wonders, when they're allowed to be engaged into something that they're excited about, when they're allowed to create, or when they're allowed to innovate. As Albert Einstein says, I never teach my students, I only provide the conditions in which they can learn. This wonderful 100-slide PowerPoint presentation, which is very much student-centered, is available at the Tips for Teachers store. Search the link at the bottom. You will not be disappointed.